Prime Minister's Young Master, A Life of Food and Strategy. Chapter 1: Transmigration into a Noble Family. The first thing Shen Weiyun felt was the softness of silk under his cheek, and a faint, pleasant scent of sandalwood lingering in the air. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the warm sunlight streaming through the carved wooden window frames. The ceiling above him was high, made of dark polished wood with intricate patterns he had never seen before. He sat up abruptly, his heart pounding. This was definitely not his small modern apartment, nor the hospital room he remembered being in after that sudden car accident. A sharp pain throbbed in his head, and a flood of strange memories rushed in, merging with his own. He was now Shen Weiyun, 17 years old, the youngest son of Prime Minister Shen Fu, the most powerful and respected official in the Great Liang dynasty. Born into wealth and power, this young master had grown up pampered, gentle, soft-hearted, and known throughout the capital for being utterly ordinary. No great talent in literature, none in martial arts, and only a fondness for good food and comfortable leisure. Weiyun let out a long breath and leaned back against the bed curtain. Transmigration. I actually transmigrated. As someone who had read plenty of novels in his spare time, he understood exactly what was happening. He was in ancient China now, in a world far removed from his 21st century life. But unlike the protagonists who sought power, revenge, or grand achievements, Weiyun's first thought was simple and clear: perfect. He had worked hard all his life, always busy, always chasing goals, and had barely had time to enjoy himself before the accident. Now, he was the son of the Prime Minister, born with a golden spoon in his mouth, with status, wealth, and no need to fight for anything. My goal from today onward, he whispered to himself, eyes sparkling with determination, is to live a relaxed, carefree life, eat the best food, sleep as long as I want, and stay as far away from court politics, power struggles, and danger as humanly possible. Just then, the door creaked open, and a young maid in a neat blue dress stepped in, her face lighting up when she saw him awake. "Young master, you're up. Are you feeling well? The doctor said you just had a slight fever from the wind. Nothing serious." This was Xiao Tao, his personal maid, loyal and sweet. Weiyun smiled, putting on that gentle, slightly lazy expression the original owner was known for. "I'm fine now, Xiao Tao. Much better. I'm actually quite hungry. What's for lunch today?" Xiao Tao chuckled, delighted that her young master was back to normal. "There's braised pork, steamed fish, stir-fried vegetables, and lotus seed soup. All your favorites." Weiyun nodded, already mentally reviewing recipes in his head. The food here was decent, but limited by ancient methods and knowledge. He could definitely make it better. Over the next few days, he familiarized himself with the Prime Minister's residence. It was vast, with beautiful gardens, lakes, and rows of magnificent halls. His father, Shen Fu, was a stern but fair man, respected by the emperor and loved by the people. His two older brothers were capable. One worked in the Ministry of Rights, the other was a military officer. They all doted on him, the youngest and most delicate member of the family. Everything was peaceful. Everything was perfect. Weiyun thought he had hit the jackpot. He spent his days wandering the gardens, tasting different dishes, and making small improvements to the recipes served in his courtyard. Life was exactly as he had dreamed. Easy, comfortable, and delicious. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered. In novels, being the son of the Prime Minister usually means trouble is never far away. He shook the thought away. Not me. I'm staying out of everything. Just food and fun. Little did he know, fate and three powerful men had other plans for him. Chapter 2: Settling Down and Culinary Experiments. Within a week, the entire Prime Minister's residence knew one thing. Young Master Shen had suddenly become very interested in cooking and food preparation. Started small. Weiyun called the head cook, Auntie Wang, a kind and experienced woman, and politely suggested a few changes. He explained how to control the heat more precisely, how to cut ingredients to make them absorb flavor better, and shared a simple recipe for sweet and sour sauce made with vinegar, sugar, and a touch of starch, something completely new to this era. When the first batch of dishes came out, The fragrance spread through the whole courtyard. Auntie Wang tasted a bite and stared in disbelief. "Young master, this tastes better than anything I've ever made in my life." Weiyun just smiled lazily. "Just a little idea I had. It's delicious, isn't it?" From that day on, his courtyard became the most popular place in the whole mansion. Servants, guards, even his older brothers would find excuses to drop by, just to try the snacks or meals he had a hand in making. He invented crispy fried dough sticks, creamy bean curd pudding, various preserved fruits, and a rich, spicy dipping sauce that everyone went crazy for. He lived exactly as he wanted. Wake up late, eat good food, nap in the garden, and experiment with new recipes. He acted exactly like the spoiled, pleasure-loving young master everyone expected him to be: soft, gentle, seemingly uninterested in anything but comfort and taste. It was the perfect disguise. One afternoon, while he was supervising the making of a new type of steamed bun stuffed with red bean paste, a steward hurried over, bowing respectfully. "Young master, the Grand Duke has arrived. He is discussing official matters with the master in the main hall, and they have requested refreshments. Could you perhaps send over some of the snacks you made recently?" Weiyun waved his hand casually. "Of course. Send 2 plates of the sweet cakes and a jar of the flower tea. Make sure they are fresh." He didn't think much of it. Grand Duke Linyuan was a powerful figure, the emperor's own uncle, a man who held great military power and influence in the court. He was known to be stern, calculating, and rarely impressed by anything. Weiyun's plan was stay far away from him, but fate had other ideas. Half an hour later, while Weiyun was sitting in the pavilion eating his own snack, a tall figure in a dark purple robe appeared at the entrance. He had broad shoulders, sharp features, and eyes as deep and unreadable as the night sky Grand Duke Linyuan himself. Weiyun stood up quickly, bowing politely. "Greetings, Grand Duke. I did not know you would come here. Please forgive me for not welcoming you properly." Linyuan's gaze swept over him, from his soft hair to his loose, comfortable robes, and finally settled on the plate of pastries in his hand. The stern expression on his face softened just a fraction. "No need for formalities, young Master Shen. I came because I wanted to thank you for the refreshments sent earlier." He took a step closer, his voice low and magnetic. "I have tasted countless delicacies in the palace and in noble houses across the land. But the sweet cake you sent, it had a taste I have never encountered before. Refined, sweet but not cloying, with a lingering fragrance. It was extraordinary." Weiyun blinked, surprised. He had thought it was just a simple cake. "It's just a small thing I made to pass the time. If you like it, Grand Duke, I can send more to your residence sometime." Linyuan looked at him closely. Most noble young masters were either stiff and arrogant, or desperate to show off their talents. This one, however, was relaxed, natural, humble, and seemed genuinely uninterested in impressing anyone. He really just seemed to enjoy food for food's sake. A strange curiosity stirred in the Grand Duke's heart. "The rumors say he is soft and ordinary, but there is something very special about him." "Then I shall look forward to it," Linyuan said, a faint, rare smile touching his lips. He left shortly after, but from that day onward, he found himself visiting the Prime Minister's residence far more often than official business required. Weiyun sighed softly as he watched him leave. Well, at least he likes the food. That's safe, right? He still believed he could stay out of trouble. But the first thread of fate had already wrapped around his wrist. Chapter 3. First Brush with Danger. 2 months after arriving in this world, Weiyun began to realize that his wish to stay out of trouble was easier said than done. It started with whispers, servants gossiping in the corridors, quiet discussions between his father and brothers behind closed doors, and subtle coldness from some officials when they visited. One evening, while walking past the study, he heard voices raised in argument and stopped instinctively behind a screen. "Father, the rumors are spreading faster every day." It was his eldest brother, Shen Weiyun, his voice tight with worry. "They say you have been hoarding large quantities of grain in the granaries. planning to raise prices and profit from the people's suffering. They even say you are secretly plotting against the throne. Prime Minister Shen Fu's voice was heavy and tired. I know. It is a carefully planned scheme. Someone wants to pull me down, to destroy our family's reputation and power. But there is no evidence everything is planted. Everything is arranged perfectly. If we defend ourselves too loudly, it looks like guilt. If we stay quiet, the people will believe the lies. Weiyun's heart sank. Here it comes. The classic political plot. He frowned, thinking quickly. From his modern perspective, this was a textbook case of character assassination and framing. He listened more, piecing together the details. The accuser was Minister Wang, a longtime political rival of his father. The evidence was discovered by accident. The timing coincided perfectly with the approaching harvest season, and the rumors were designed to make the public angry and the emperor suspicious. Weiyun leaned against the wall, analyzing step by step, using the logical thinking and problem-solving skills he had honed in his modern life. The flaws are obvious, if you know where to look. Minister Wang claimed the grain was bought 3 months ago, but the records showed the price of grain at that time was far lower than the amount written in the account books he presented. He claimed it was stored in the Western granary, but Weiyun remembered that the Western granary had been damaged by rain and closed for repairs for half a year. Also, the handwriting on the secret documents was slightly different. Small details that others might miss, but which stood out clearly to him. He didn't want to get involved. He really didn't. He wanted to go back to his room, eat his dessert, and pretend he heard nothing. But then he thought of his father's tired face, his brother's worry, and the warmth and kindness this family had shown him from day one. I can't just watch them get destroyed while I hide behind my food. He slipped away quietly, went back to his room, and took a piece of high-quality paper and a brush. He wrote down every inconsistency, every flaw in the evidence, and clearly laid out the timeline and logic, pointing out exactly why the accusations were false and planted. He wrote clearly and concisely, using sharp reasoning but no name. At the bottom, he simply wrote, "These are facts worth examining." That night, he quietly slipped the note onto his father's desk, making sure no one saw him. The next morning, the atmosphere in the residence changed completely. Weiyun saw his father holding the paper, reading it over and over again, his eyes bright with shock and relief. "Who wrote this?" Shen Fu murmured, looking around the study. "Whoever this person is, they see everything clearly. Every single point is correct. This is the key to clearing our name." His eldest brother leaned over, reading with wide eyes. "Father, look at this logic, this way of organizing facts. It is unlike anything I have ever seen. Sharp, calm, and completely accurate. If we present this to His Majesty, Minister Wang's plot will collapse instantly." Weiyun stood in the distance, pretending to admire a potted flower, a small smile on his lips. He felt a little proud, but also reminded himself, this was just a small help. I am still just the young master who loves food. No need to draw attention to myself. But unknown to him, his father began to look at him differently from that day on, with a faint hint of surprise and curiosity, as if he had suddenly realized his youngest son might not be as simple or ordinary as everyone thought. And far away in the palace, the emperor had already heard the rumors. He was skeptical but waiting for the prime minister's response. He had no idea that soon, he would meet the person who held the key to solving this mess and who would completely change his world. Weiyun thought he had saved the day quietly and safely. But this was only the beginning. The attention of powerful men was already turning toward him, and his peaceful life was about to become far more interesting and romantic than he had ever imagined. Chapter 4: Meeting the Emperor. 3 days later, an imperial decree arrived at the prime minister's residence. The messenger's voice rang clear and solemn. By order of the emperor, Prime Minister Shen Fu is to enter the palace immediately to explain the matters regarding grain reserves and related accusations. Young Master Shen Weiyun shall accompany him. Weiyun, who had been leisurely peeling oranges in the garden, froze. He turned to his father, equally stunned. "Father, why me?" Shen Fu looked at him with a complicated expression. Part pride, part worry, and part wonder. He folded the imperial scroll carefully. I submitted the analysis you left anonymously. His Majesty was deeply impressed. He said, whoever wrote that note has a clear mind and unique insight. He suspects it is you. Weiyun's heart sank. I tried so hard to stay hidden. Besides, his father added softly, even if you hadn't written it, you are my son. Going with me shows our family's confidence and innocence. Don't be afraid. Just act as you always do. Calm, gentle, and speak only when necessary. Weiyun nodded, though inside he was panicking slightly. He had wanted to avoid court politics, not walk straight into the dragon's den, but there was no way to refuse an imperial order. He quickly changed into formal robes, soft blue silk, simple and elegant, no excessive embroidery, tied his hair neatly, and followed his father into the imperial carriage. The journey to the palace felt long. Weiyun spent the time mentally preparing himself. He knew that, in this era, offending the emperor meant losing your head. But he also knew one thing. The truth was on their side. When they entered the main hall, Weiyun lowered his head respectfully, following proper etiquette. The hall was grand and solemn, filled with high-ranking officials standing in rows. At the very front, sitting high on the golden dragon throne, was the Emperor Xiaoyan. He was in his late 20s, tall and imposing, with sharp brows and deep, dark eyes that seemed capable of seeing straight through a person's soul. He radiated authority and calm, the kind of man who ruled a vast empire with wisdom and strength. Rise. The emperor's voice was deep and resonant, echoing in the quiet hall. Xin Fu stood up and Weiyun stood quietly half a step behind him, head slightly bowed, looking like a well-behaved, modest young nobleman. Minister Wang, the accuser, stepped forward immediately, bowing low. Your Majesty, the evidence against Prime Minister Shen is clear and solid. He has hoarded grain, falsified accounts, and intends to disrupt prices to harm the people. This is a crime against the state. The emperor looked at him calmly, then turned his gaze slowly toward Xin Fu, and finally, directly at Weiyun. Weiyun felt that gaze land on him, heavy and searching, but he did not flinch. He lifted his eyes slightly, meeting the emperor's gaze for a brief second, then looked away respectfully, his expression calm and composed, no trace of fear or guilt. Prime Minister, Xiaoyan spoke slowly, you submitted a document listing all the flaws in the evidence against you. It was sharp, logical, and dismantled every point Minister Wang raised. Who wrote it? Xin Fu bowed again. Your Majesty. It was written by my unworthy son, Shen Weiyun. A quiet murmur swept through the hall. Everyone knew the youngest son of the Prime Minister, soft, spoiled, only interested in food and leisure. They could not believe such brilliant reasoning came from him. Xiaoyan leaned forward slightly, interest flickering in his eyes. Shen Weiyun, step forward. Weiyun walked out from behind his father, knelt gracefully. Your Majesty. Tell me, Xiaoyan said, his tone curious and serious. How did you see through all this? These are matters of state, accounts, and court rules, things most young men of your age do not understand. And yet you found every mistake. Weiyun kept his tone natural and relaxed, exactly like the easygoing young master he pretended to be. Your Majesty, I don't understand complicated court rules. I only looked at things as they are. If grain was bought 3 months ago, the price written down doesn't match the market price at that time, so it must be fake. If they say it was stored in the Western granary, but everyone knows that granary has been broken and empty for months, so that is also fake. I just looked at facts, nothing more. He spoke simply, without arrogance, without trying to impress. It sounded so ordinary, yet so profound. The hall fell silent. Minister Wang's face turned pale. He realized his carefully constructed plot was destroyed by such simple, clear logic. Xiaoyan stared at him, stunned and fascinated. He was surrounded by officials who were either flattering, scheming, or overly serious. Never had he met someone who spoke with such clarity, such ease, and such pure focus on truth. This young man was like a breath of fresh air in the stifling court. Excellent, Xiaoyan said. a rare genuine smile touching his lips. You see things simply, and in simplicity lies the truth. Minister Wang is dismissed and will be investigated for framing an innocent official. Prime Minister Shen is cleared of all charges. As they bowed to leave, Xiao Yan's eyes followed Weiyun's figure. Interesting, he thought. They say he only loves food and leisure, but this mind, this character, he is far more precious than any treasure in my palace. From that moment, the emperor's heart was captured. He knew he wanted to see more of this young man, to talk to him, to understand him. And he would not let him stay hidden in the prime minister's residence forever. Chapter 5. General Gu Zhan's return. A few days after the incident, the capital celebrated a grand event. General Gu Zhan was returning from the northern border, victorious after 3 years of fighting to defend the frontier. Gu Zhan was a legend in the great Liang dynasty. Young, brave, undefeated in battle, loved by soldiers and people alike. He was known not only for his martial skills but also for his upright, honest character. Every time his name was mentioned, people spoke with admiration and respect. To welcome him, the emperor ordered a grand celebration, and many noble families held their own banquets. The prime minister's residence was no exception. Xin Fu decided to host a dinner for Gu Zhan and other important officials, and naturally, Weiyun was put in charge of all arrangements, since everyone now knew he had a special talent for making things perfect and enjoyable. Weiyun threw himself into the task happily. To him, organizing a banquet was just like planning a big meal and a fun gathering, something he was very good at. He designed the menu carefully, combining traditional favorites with the new recipes he had invented. He arranged the seating logically, planned entertainment that was elegant but not boring, and even decorated the courtyard with flowers and lanterns to create a warm atmosphere. On the day of the banquet, guests arrived one by one. Weiyun stood at the entrance, greeting everyone with a gentle smile, making sure every detail was handled smoothly. The food was exquisite. Dishes he had never tasted before, rich in flavor and beautifully presented. The arrangement was thoughtful. Every guest was comfortable and happy. The conversation flowed smoothly, lively but proper. He watched Weiyun moving quietly through the crowd, pouring tea here, asking about comfort there, laughing softly with others, never arrogant, never seeking attention. And yet, he was the soul of the entire gathering. Halfway through the meal, Gu Zhan found a chance to speak to him alone by the garden lake. "Young Master Shen," Gu Zhan said, looking at him with genuine admiration. "I have been away at the border for years. I have seen many officials, many noble sons. Most care only for power or pleasure or showing off. But you seem to care only about making everyone comfortable, about good food and peace. And yet, you have wisdom that many great ministers lack." Weiyun leaned against the stone railing, smiling lazily as he looked at the lotus flowers in the water. "General, I am just a lazy person. I like good food. I like quiet days. I like seeing people happy. I don't want anything else. Wisdom? I just use common sense, that's all." Gu Zhan looked at him, captivated. There was no pretense in him, no hidden agenda. He was pure, bright, and warm like the sun. For Gu Zhan, who lived in a world of battles, strategies, and harsh duties, Weiyun was like a gentle breeze or a warm cup of tea, something he had been missing his whole life. A feeling he had never known before stirred in his chest. He wanted to protect this young man. He wanted to stand guard so that Weiyun could always live the easy, happy life he loved. He wanted to be the one who brought him rare ingredients from faraway places, who kept danger far away from him. "Common sense is the rarest thing in this court," Gu Zhan said softly, his gaze intense. "Young master, if you ever need anything, or if anything troubles you, send word to me. I will come." Weiyun blinked, surprised by the seriousness in his tone. Before he could reply, they were called back to the hall. But Gu Zhan's words stayed in his mind. Now, it wasn't just the emperor and the Grand Duke who were interested. The bravest, most powerful general in the empire had also fallen under his spell. Weiyun scratched his head, feeling a strange warmth and confusion. 3 powerful men, all looking at me like I'm the only thing worth seeing. What have I gotten myself into? But deep down, a small part of him didn't mind at all. Chapter 6: Poisoned Wine and a Conspiracy. A month later, the court was preparing for the Mid-Autumn Festival. It was tradition for noble families to gather and hold a grand feast, exchanging visits and gifts. Even though Minister Wang had been punished, there were still many forces in the court who saw the Shen family as a threat. They were unhappy that Shen Fu remained in power, and even more unhappy that his youngest son had suddenly become famous and favored by the emperor. This year, the main feast was hosted by the Duke of Yongle, an influential nobleman who had long been opposed to the prime minister. Weiyun accompanied his father to the banquet, dressed in a soft white robe with silver embroidery, looking fresh and elegant. He really didn't want to come. He would have preferred to stay home, eat mooncakes, and watch the moon in peace. But as part of the family, he had to attend. The banquet hall was crowded with nobles, officials, and their families. Music played softly, wine cups were raised, and laughter filled the air. But Weiyun could sense the tension underneath. Glances exchanged, whispers, fake smiles. It was like walking through a field of hidden traps. He stayed close to his father, eating his food slowly, observing everything quietly. His habit of noticing small details, sharpened by his modern life, made him see things others missed. Halfway through the feast, the Duke of Yongle stood up, raising a large jade cup filled with wine. He walked straight toward Shen Fu, a wide, seemingly sincere smile on his face. "Prime Minister Shen." His voice boomed across the hall. "You have served the empire faithfully for many years, and recently you have even cleared your name from false accusations. Truly a role model for all of us. I offer you this cup of wine personally, to wish you long life and prosperity." Everyone's eyes turned to them. Shen Fu stood up politely, ready to accept. "Thank you, Duke. You are too kind." He reached out to take the cup, but before his fingers touched it, Weiyun stepped forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the wine in the cup. From far away, no one could see anything unusual, but Weiyun noticed it immediately. The wine was a clear golden color, but near the rim, there was a faint, almost invisible layer of pale white powder residue. And the smell? It smelled like fine rice wine, but mixed with a very faint, bitter almond scent. Something Weiyun recognized instantly from modern knowledge. A slow-acting poison, tasteless, odorless when mixed properly, but deadly over time. "Father, wait a moment," Weiyun said calmly, his voice soft but clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. Shen Fu paused, looking at his son. The Duke of Yongle's smile froze slightly, a flash of panic crossing his eyes, gone so fast no one else saw it, except Weiyun. Weiyun turned to the Duke, smiling gently, acting like a curious, innocent young master. "Duke, this wine looks truly exceptional. The color is beautiful, and the cup is exquisite. May I take a closer look? I have never seen wine like this before." Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and took the cup from the Duke's hand. He held it up to the light, tilted it slightly, and pointed to the rim. "Look here. There seems to be something stuck to the edge," he said innocently. Then, he turned to a servant standing nearby, took a silver hairpin from his own hair, and dipped it into the wine. In front of everyone's shocked eyes, the silver pin turned instantly black. Gasps rang out across the hall. Shen Fu's face went cold. The Duke of Yongle turned pale, stepping back unsteadily. Weiyun's smile faded. He looked at the Duke, his eyes no longer soft or lazy. They were sharp, clear, and penetrating. "Duke, this wine seems to have something mixed into it. Silver turns black when touching poison. Everyone knows that. You offered this to my father. Was it intentional or a mistake?" The hall fell into dead silence. Just then, 3 figures entered from the main entrance. The Emperor Xiao Yan, who had come to attend unannounced, Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan, and General Gu Jin. They had seen everything from the moment Weiyun stepped forward. Xiao Yan's face was cold as ice, his eyes filled with suppressed rage. Xiao Linyuan's expression was dark and terrifying, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Gu Jin's gaze was fixed on Weiyun, relief, admiration, and fierce protectiveness shining in his eyes. The Duke of Yongle fell to his knees, trembling, unable to say a word. The plot was exposed completely, thanks to Weiyun's sharp observation and quick thinking. Weiyun handed the cup to a guard, wiped his hands calmly, and turned back into the gentle, quiet young master, as if he hadn't just uncovered an assassination attempt in front of everyone. But in that moment, the three powerful men were certain of one thing. This young man was not only precious and lovable. He was brilliant, brave, and extraordinary. Their attraction was no longer just interest or admiration. It had deepened into deep, possessive love. They knew then that they would never let anyone hurt him, and they would do anything to make him theirs. Weiyun sighed inwardly. I just wanted to eat good food. Why do I keep getting dragged into these dangerous situations? But as he looked up and met the intense, loving gazes of the three most powerful men in the empire, he realized that his easy life was gone. But in exchange, he had gained something far more precious. Chapter 7: The Grain Crisis. The peace following the Duke of Yongle's arrest was short-lived. Nature, it seemed, was less merciful than court politics. A severe drought had gripped the northern provinces, and reports were flooding in of parched earth and failing crops. In the capital, the atmosphere turned grim. While the wealthy still feasted, the price of rice began to climb daily. Corrupt merchants, sensing a windfall, began hoarding their stock. Weiyun was sitting in his garden, staring at a bowl of bland congee. He had lost his appetite. Outside the prime minister's walls, people were starting to starve. Father looks like he hasn't slept in a week, Weiyun muttered to Xiao Tao. He knew the traditional way to handle this. The government would release some reserves, appeal to merchants' charity, and pray for rain. It was reactive and inefficient. In his previous life, Weiyun had worked in a logistics firm. He knew how supply chains worked. That night, he walked into his father's study without being summoned. Shen Fu was buried under mountains of desperate reports. Father, Weiyun said, placing a cup of calming herbal tea on the desk. The grain problem isn't just about a lack of food. It's about movement and psychology. Shen Fu looked up, rubbing his eyes. Psychology. Weiyun pulled up a chair. People hoard because they are afraid. Merchants hoard because they want to profit from that fear. We need to break the cycle. He laid out a 3-step plan: transparency, categorization, and preservation. 1. Transparency. Publish the exact amount of imperial grain reserves every day to show there is no shortage. 2. Categorization. Force merchants to register their stock. If they don't sell a certain percentage at a fair ceiling price set by the court, the government will seize it as emergency tax. 3. Preservation. Weiyun explained a simple method of using dry sand and sealed pits to prevent the current reserves from rotting in the heat, extending their shelf life. Shen Fu listened, his jaw dropping. It was a complete overhaul of the empire's economic management. Weiyun, where did you learn this? Weiyun shrugged, his eyes twinkling. I just thought, if I were a greedy merchant, what would make me scared enough to sell my rice? The next day, Shen Fu presented the Shen strategy to the court. The emperor, Xiaoyan, was stunned. He immediately recognized the modern, logical structure behind the plan. He didn't even need to ask who had come up with it. The youngest master Shen again, Xiaoyan whispered to himself, a proud smile playing on his lips. He saves my people while he eats his snacks. How can I not want him by my side? Chapter 8: Closer Ties. The implementation of the grain strategy required coordination, which meant Weiyun could no longer hide in his courtyard. He was officially appointed as a special consultant to the Ministry of Works and Finance. This meant he was constantly interrupted by 3 very powerful men. First was the emperor. Xiaoyan began summoning Weiyun to the imperial library under the guise of refining the grain policy. However, more often than not, the table was laid with rare fruits and delicacies. Weiyun, tell me more about this supply and demand theory of yours, Xiaoyan said one afternoon, leaning closer than necessary as they looked over a map. Weiyun explained it simply, his easygoing nature preventing him from being intimidated by the dragon robes. He even reached over and took a grape from the emperor's plate. Xiao Yan didn't get angry. He looked at Wei Yun's slender fingers and felt a surge of affection so strong it made his heart ache. Then there was the Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan. He didn't use the palace. He simply bumped into Wei Yun whenever he left the ministry. "You look tired, little Yun," Linyuan said, stopping his carriage beside Wei Yun one evening. "Come. I found a chef who knows how to make that spicy fish dish you mentioned." Linyuan was more direct. He would peel the shrimp for Wei Yun, his eyes never leaving the younger man's face. He loved the way Wei Yun's eyes lit up when he ate, and how he would ramble about modern concepts like infrastructure with such passion, unaware of how beautiful he looked under the moonlight. Finally, there was General Guzhen. He came to Wei Yun with a practical problem: military rations. "The soldiers' food is hard and tasteless, young master," Guzhen said, standing tall and awkward in the Shen garden. "It spoils easily on long marches." Wei Yun spent a whole afternoon teaching Guzhen how to make portable rations, a version of dehydrated meat and compressed grain bars. As they worked, their hands brushed frequently. Guzhen, the man who had faced thousands of enemies without flinching, actually blushed. "You are too good for this world, Wei Yun," Guzhen said softly, watching Wei Yun wipe flour off his nose. "The emperor wants your mind, the duke wants your charm, but I just want you to be safe." Wei Yun looked at the three of them, the powerful ruler, the cunning strategist, and the brave protector, and felt a strange tug in his heart. He had come here for a quiet life, but these three men were making his heart very noisy indeed. Chapter 9. Accusations and Framing. As Wei Yun's influence grew, so did the shadows. The remnants of the Duke of Yongl's faction and other jealous officials couldn't stand seeing a food-loving dandy become the emperor's favorite. They knew they couldn't attack his intelligence anymore, so they attacked his loyalty. One morning, the capital woke up to a shocking discovery. A secret messenger from the northern barbarian tribes was captured at the city gates. In his possession was a letter addressed to the Shen family. The letter thanked Prime Minister Shen and his son for providing the grain strategy, claiming it was a secret code to show the barbarians where the empire's food supplies were most vulnerable so they could attack. It was a brilliant, deadly frame. It turned Wei Yun's greatest achievement into an act of treason. The court went into an uproar. "It makes sense," the enemies cried. "How else could a 17-year-old boy know so much about logistics? He must have been trained by foreign spies." Soldiers were sent to surround the prime minister's residence. Shen Fu was placed under house arrest. Wei Yun stood at the window, watching the armored men outside. For the first time since transmigrating, his easygoing smile was gone. "They're using my own knowledge against me," Wei Yun whispered. He sat down at his desk, but he didn't panic. He began to apply the forensic logic he had learned from watching modern crime dramas. "If I sent this letter, when would it have been written? Does the ink match the age of the paper? Is the bird used for the messenger native to the north or local?" He noticed a small detail in the report. The messenger was caught with parched corn in his bag. Wei Yun's eyes sharpened. "Corn? Corn isn't grown in the north yet. It's only grown in the Duke of Yongl's private estates in the south." He wasn't just a food lover. He was a man with 21st century education. He knew about botany, geography, and cold, hard logic. He didn't wait for a trial. He knew the emperor, the duke, and the general were likely being pressured to execute him. He needed to reach them. He took a small piece of charcoal and drew a map, not of the empire but of the conspiracy. "Xiao Tao," he said, his voice cold and determined. "I need you to get a message to the Grand Duke. Tell him, the north doesn't grow gold, and the south doesn't eat northern dust. He'll understand." The game was on. The enemies thought they had trapped a rabbit, but they had no idea they had offended a man who knew how the world truly worked. Chapter 10. Exposing the Truth. The atmosphere in the imperial palace was heavy and suffocating. The entire court was assembled, and the accusations of treason against the Shen family hung in the air like a sharp blade. Minister Liu, the main accuser and ally of the late Duke of Yongle, stood in the center, his voice loud and triumphant. "Your Majesty, the evidence is undeniable. The letter, the messenger, the methods. Everything proves that the Shen family has been colluding with the enemy for years, especially that young Master Shen, who suddenly appeared with strange knowledge and methods never seen before. Who knows what other secrets he has been hiding? They should be imprisoned immediately and punished according to the law." Many officials nodded and whispered in agreement. Fear and jealousy made them eager to pull the powerful family down. On the throne, Emperor Xiaoyan's face was cold and unreadable. He looked at Xin Fu, who stood with his head held high but pale with worry, and then his gaze shifted to Shen Weiyun, standing quietly beside his father. Xiaoyan was torn. He wanted to believe Weiyun with all his heart, but the evidence seemed so complete, so perfect. Yet, knowing Weiyun as he did, he knew the young man was far too smart to leave such obvious traces. He was waiting for Weiyun to speak. Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan stood to the side, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression dark and terrifying. He had received Weiyun's message earlier. The north doesn't grow gold, and the south doesn't eat northern dust. He already understood the clue, but he held his silence, waiting for Weiyun to reveal everything himself. General Gu Jin stood rigidly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, his eyes fixed entirely on Weiyun. If anything happened to the young master, he was ready to defy orders and drag him out of the palace himself. Just as Minister Lu was about to demand an arrest order, Weiyun stepped forward. He didn't look nervous or angry. He looked calm, composed, and even a little bit pitying, like he was watching a child play a clumsy trick. "Minister Lu speaks very well," Weiyun said softly, his voice clear enough for the whole hall to hear. "Everything he says sounds very reasonable. If you don't actually know anything about the world outside the capital." Minister Lu frowned sharply. "What do you mean? Do you dare to question the evidence?" "I don't question it," Weiyun replied, walking slowly to the center. He took out a small cloth bag from his sleeve, the one Xiao Tao had kept safe. He opened it, revealing a handful of dried yellow grains. "I just want to ask a simple question. You said this messenger came from the northern barbarian tribes, carrying a letter from us to them. And you said he was caught carrying this grain as his travel rations." He held up the grain so everyone could see. "Does anyone here know what this is?" Weiyun asked. There was silence. Most officials only knew rice and wheat. Weiyun smiled faintly. "This is corn. It grows well in warm climates, in fertile, moist soil. It has never been grown in the northern lands, where it is dry, cold, and rocky. The people there don't even know what it is, let alone eat it as their main food. But this grain is very common in the southern estates of the late Duke of Yongla, and also in your own lands, Minister Lu." The hall erupted in whispers. Minister Lu's face turned from red to white, then to a sickly gray. "Also," Weiyun continued, pulling out the letter itself, "look at the paper and the ink. The paper is made from bamboo, which only grows south of the river. The ink uses pine soot, which is produced only in the western mountains controlled by your family. A messenger from the north would use animal skin or rough grass paper, and ink made from charcoal or minerals. Not this. You didn't get these from the enemy, you made them yourself right here in the capital." He listed flaw after flaw, dismantling the ironclad evidence piece by piece, using knowledge of geography, agriculture, and materials that no one else in this era possessed. Every word hit Minister Lu like a heavy hammer. By the end, Minister Lu was trembling all over, unable to say a single word in defense. He fell to his knees with a loud thud, realizing his perfect plan had been destroyed completely by details he hadn't even thought existed. "Your Majesty, it's not. That's enough." Xiaoyan's voice rang out, cold and filled with suppressed fury. He stood up, his eyes sweeping over Minister Lu and his allies. "You framed loyal ministers, fabricated evidence, and tried to harm the people who helped this empire. Take them all away. Investigate every one of their crimes thoroughly." Guards rushed forward and dragged the crying, protesting officials away. The tension vanished instantly. Shun Fu let out a long breath and bowed deeply, relief washing over him. Xiao Yan looked down at Wei Yun, his gaze softening instantly, filled with pride, amazement, and deep emotion. Everyone in the hall was looking at the young master with awe and respect. They finally understood. He wasn't just a lucky young man or a food lover. He was a genius, someone whose wisdom far surpassed anyone else in the empire. Grand Duke Xiaolinyuan looked at Wei Yun with a faint, proud smile, his eyes dark with affection. This is my person. Sharp, brilliant, and mine to protect. General Gu Zhen's chest swelled with pride and deep love. He wanted nothing more than to step forward, pick Wei Yun up, and carry him away where no one could ever hurt him again. Wei Yun just stood there, smoothing his robes gently, as if he hadn't just saved his family and defeated a powerful political faction. He still looked like the same easygoing young man who only cared about food. But now everyone knew better, and the three men who loved him, they were more captivated, more determined, and more in love than ever before. Chapter 11. Protecting the family's standing. After the treason case was resolved, the Shen family's position didn't just recover. It became stronger and more stable than ever. The emperor trusted them completely, the people admired and loved them, and no one in the court dared to plot against them again. But Wei Yun knew very well that power was like a double-edged sword. Too much favor and influence could also become a disaster if not handled properly. He sat down with his father and brothers in the study that evening, his expression serious and mature, no trace of his usual laziness. "Father, big brothers," Wei Yun said seriously, "we are now at the peak of power. But remember, the higher you stand, the further you fall if you make a mistake. To keep our family safe and respected forever, we need to change how we do things." Shen Fu nodded, listening carefully. He now treated his youngest son not just as a child, but as an equal, a wise advisor he could trust completely. Wei Yun laid out his plan to secure their standing long-term. Be fair and clean. Never accept bribes. Never use power for personal gain. Let the whole empire know that the Shen family is loyal and honest. Serve the people. Use their influence to push for better policies. Building roads, improving irrigation, helping poor villages. The support of the people is the strongest shield a family can have. Stay humble. Do not act arrogant or superior. Treat everyone with respect, from high officials to ordinary servants. Avoid making new enemies. Strengthen from within. Improve the management of the family estate. Educate the younger generations. Ensure every member is capable and well-behaved, so no one can find a reason to criticize or attack them. He also applied modern management ideas to the Prime Minister's residence. Clear rules, fair rewards and punishments, efficient organization, and better treatment for servants and workers. Under his guidance, the household ran smoothly, efficiently, and harmoniously. Within a few months, the reputation of the Shen family became legendary. People spoke of them with respect and gratitude. Officials admired their integrity. Even the emperor praised them constantly as the model of noble families. Wei Yun himself became a unique figure in the capital. Everyone knew, young Master Shen loves food, enjoys leisure, acts gentle and relaxed. But if you think he is easy to bully or fool, you have made a huge mistake. He is the Shen family's greatest treasure and strongest protection. And while he was busy securing his family's future, the three powerful men were busy securing him. Emperor Xiaoyan gave Wei Yun a special token that allowed him to enter and leave the palace whenever he wanted. No questions asked. He sent rare ingredients from all over the empire, precious books, and beautiful gifts every few days. He often invited Wei Yun to accompany him on inspections or hunting trips, keeping him always by his side. Grand Duke Xiaolinyuan visited even more frequently. He became the Shen family's closest ally, handling political matters and clearing obstacles so Wei Yun wouldn't have to worry about them. He would bring Wei Yun new recipes, rare spices, or interesting toys, and spend hours just sitting and watching Wei Yun cook or eat, his eyes full of soft affection. He made it clear to everyone, whoever touches Shen Weiyun, touches me. General Gu Zhen came often too, bringing gifts from the borders. exotic fruits, rare meats, furs to keep warm, and even special guards to protect the residents. He taught Weiyun simple self-defense moves, always standing close, his tall figure acting like a solid wall of protection. He was quiet, steady, and always there whenever Weiyun needed anything. Weiyun began to realize that his plan to live a quiet, easy life had completely failed. But looking at the warm, sincere, and intense affection these three men gave him, he found that he didn't mind at all. In fact, his heart felt fuller and happier than ever before. Chapter 12: Growing Feelings. As time passed, the boundaries between friendship, admiration, and love became more and more blurred. Weiyun was smart, very smart. He couldn't fail to notice the way they looked at him. The emperor's gaze was possessive and tender, like looking at the most precious treasure in the world. The Grand Duke's eyes were deep and burning, filled with desire and longing. The general's eyes were warm, sincere, and full of devotion. They treated him differently from anyone else. They spoiled him endlessly, tolerated his little habits, laughed at his jokes, and listened carefully to every word he said. They competed subtly for his attention, trying to spend more time with him, make him smile more, and be the one he relied on the most. One evening, Weiyun was sitting in the garden pavilion, eating the candied fruits that Gu Zhen had brought back from the far west. Xiao Linyuan was sitting opposite him, peeling an orange slowly, while Xiao Yan was leaning against the pillar, watching him with a soft smile. They had come together today, something that happened more and more often. The three powerful men, who usually stood on opposite sides or competed for power, had formed a strange, silent alliance over one thing: Shen Weiyun. Weiyun bit into a sweet fruit, his eyes curving into happy crescents. He looked up and found all three of them staring at him, completely captivated, as if watching him eat was the most interesting and beautiful sight in the world. He paused, wiping his mouth awkwardly. "Why are you all looking at me like that? Is there something on my face?" Xiao Yan chuckled softly, stepping closer and gently brushing a strand of hair away from Weiyun's forehead. "No, I was just thinking, how did we get so lucky? You appeared out of nowhere, changed everything, and made all of us fall so hopelessly for you." Weiyun's face turned slightly pink. He looked away, heart beating fast. "Your Majesty, Grand Duke, General, you are all great, noble, powerful men. You can have anyone you want. Why me? I'm just a lazy person who only likes food and easy days." Gu Zhen spoke up, his voice deep and gentle. "That is exactly why, Weiyun. Everyone else wants something from us. Power, wealth, status, fame. But you just want to eat well, live peacefully, and make the people you care about happy. You are pure, kind, brilliant, and warm. You don't need to be anything else. Just being you is enough to make us willing to give you everything we have." Xiao Linyuan leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand, his eyes burning with intensity. "You think you are ordinary? Little Yun. You are the most extraordinary person I have ever met. You hold the wisdom to rule the world, but you only use it to protect your family and enjoy life. You are like a bright light in this dark, dirty court. We saw you, and we couldn't look away anymore." Xiao Yan nodded, his expression serious and sincere. "We know you came here wanting a simple life. We will give you that. We will give you more than that. We will give you safety, freedom, all the delicious food you can eat, and all the happiness in the world. We just ask. Let us stay by your side. Let us love you." Weiyun looked at them. Three different men, three powerful hearts, all beating only for him. He thought about his life since transmigrating. He had come here alone, missing his old world, wanting only comfort. But now, he had a loving family, a safe home, and three people who cherished him more than anything. A warm, sweet feeling filled his chest, spreading through his whole body. He smiled, soft and bright, his eyes shining with emotion. I don't know what the future holds," Weiyun said softly. "But I know. I like being with you. I like that you are here. If you really want to stay, then stay. Just don't fight too much over me, okay? And You have to share your best food with me always." The three men laughed, their faces lighting up with pure joy. They didn't care about sharing. They didn't care about anything else. As long as they had him, everything else was secondary. In that quiet garden, under the moonlight, the bond between them deepened completely. Weiyun knew his life would never be simple or ordinary again. But with these three by his side, he realized it would be the most wonderful, loving, and happy life anyone could ever dream of. Please subscribe to my channel isekai'd. Chapter 13. Winter Festival Banquet, Sweet Competition. The annual Winter Solstice Banquet was the grandest event of the year, held in the Imperial Palace. Every noble and official attended, dressed in their finest robes. But this year, everyone's attention was drawn to one person, Shen Weiyun. He wore a robe of soft, warm white brocade with silver cloud patterns, his hair tied with a simple jade hairpin. He looked like a snow spirit, pure, gentle, and breathtakingly beautiful. But what made people watch even closer was the way three of the most powerful men in the empire hovered around him, openly and unashamedly. Weiyun had designed the entire banquet this year. He introduced hot pot, steaming pots of rich broth placed at every table, so everyone could cook their own food and stay warm. The hall was filled with delicious scents and laughter, lively and joyful like never before. While Weiyun was busy checking on the food, Emperor Xiaoyan appeared at his side, holding a small, delicate plate. "Try this," Xiaoyan said softly, stepping so close their shoulders touched. In front of everyone, he picked up a piece of tender braised meat with his own chopsticks and brought it straight to Weiyun's lips. "I remembered you said you liked sweet flavors, so I had the kitchen make it exactly how you like it. Only for you." Weiyun's face turned pink. He opened his mouth obediently, tasting the sweet, savory meat. He chewed happily, eyes curving into crescents. It's delicious. Thank you, Your Majesty." Xiaoyan's eyes darkened with affection. He wiped a tiny bit of sauce from the corner of Weiyun's mouth with his thumb, slow and intimate, as if no one else existed in the hall. "As long as you like it, I will have it made for you every day." But before they could speak more, Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan stepped in smoothly, slipping a warm fur cloak around Weiyun's shoulders, blocking the emperor's hand gently but firmly. "The hall is drafty, little Yun. Don't catch a cold," Linyuan murmured, his voice low and thick with tenderness. He pulled Weiyun slightly closer to his side, his hand resting lightly on the young man's waist, possessive but gentle. "Besides, Your Majesty, you've kept him long enough. He promised to teach me how to make that sweet rice wine earlier." He turned to Weiyun, his gaze burning and soft all at once. "Remember? You said if I was good, you'd feed me the first sip yourself." Weiyun blushed even deeper, remembering that playful promise. Before he could answer, a tall shadow fell over them. General Guzhan, holding 2 cups of steaming wine. "General or Emperor, no one takes priority over health," Guzhan said, his deep voice steady but with a hint of jealousy. He handed a cup to Weiyun, his fingers brushing against Weiyun's cold ones, wrapping them warmly. "Drink this first. It's medicinal wine I brought from the border. Warms the body, sweet taste. Exactly what you love. I brewed it myself for months, only for you." He leaned down, his face close to Weiyun's ear, voice soft enough only for him to hear. "While they are busy fighting over who gets your time, I brought you something better. Later, when the banquet ends, I'll take you to the back garden. I've prepared a whole table of your favorite snacks. Just us." Weiyun stood there, surrounded by their warmth, their scents, and their overwhelming affection. He felt like he was floating in sweet honey, warm, safe, and completely cherished. He looked up at them. The emperor who spoiled him endlessly, the duke who doted on him openly, the general who protected him silently. They looked at each other, 2 sharp glints of competition in their eyes, but also a silent understanding. None of them would give him up, but none would hurt each other either. They all knew he is ours. We share him and we cherish him equally. Later that night, after the banquet, Weiyun sat in a quiet corner of the garden, wrapped in furs, eating snacks while all three men sat around him. Xiaoyan peeled chestnuts for him, Lin Yuan poured wine, and Guzhen stood behind him, rubbing his cold hands gently. Weiyun leaned back against Guzhen's chest, taking a chestnut from Xiaoyan's hand, and smiled happily. "I came here wanting only food and peace," he murmured softly. "Now I have the best food, and the best piece of all right here with you." Xiaoyan kissed the top of his head gently. "And we will make sure you never want for anything else, ever again." Chapter 14. Late night talks and gentle confessions. Days passed, and their relationship became even closer and more intimate. Boundaries blurred. Touches became softer, longer, more frequent. It was no longer just admiration. It was deep, consuming love, and they were no longer hiding it. One night, Weiyun stayed late in the Imperial Library, helping Xiaoyan sort out documents and discussing policies. It was quiet, only the sound of pages turning and the wind outside. Xiaoyan stood behind him, leaning over the table, his arms resting on either side of Weiyun, trapping him gently between himself and the desk. His warm breath brushed against Weiyun's ear and neck, making the younger man shiver softly. "Weiyun." Xiaoyan's voice was low, husky, filled with longing. "Do you know how hard it is for me? Every day, I sit on this throne, ruling a whole empire, but my mind is always here, with you. Every gift I give, every law I pass, I do it thinking of your smile, thinking of keeping you safe and happy." He turned Weiyun around slowly, cupping his face in both hands, his thumbs stroking those soft, pink cheeks he adored so much. His dark eyes were filled with so much love it almost overflowed. "You are not just my advisor, not just my friend. You are my heart. If you asked me to give up this throne, I might just do it, if it means I can hold you like this every single moment." Weiyun's heart raced wildly. He reached up, placing his small hands over Xiaoyan's large ones. "Your Majesty, you have a duty to the people. I have a duty to myself too," Xiaoyan interrupted softly, leaning closer until their noses touched. "And my greatest desire is you." He kissed Weiyun's forehead, slow and reverent. "You have bewitched me completely." Moments later, as they walked out of the library, Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan was waiting by the door, leaning against a pillar, arms crossed, a knowing but hungry look in his eyes. "Took you long enough?" Linyuan said, stepping forward and immediately pulling Weiyun into his own arms, away from the emperor. He held him tight, pressing Weiyun's body flush against his own, resting his chin on the top of Weiyun's head. "Do you know how jealous I get? Seeing you with him, seeing everyone look at you. I want to lock you up, keep you only for myself." He pulled back slightly to look into Weiyun's eyes, his expression intense, burning with passion. "But I know you love freedom, so instead, I will give you everything. Every luxury, every pleasure, every piece of my heart. You like food? I'll travel the whole world to bring it to you. You like peace? I'll crush every enemy that dares to disturb you. You are mine, Shen Weiyun. Mine to spoil, mine to love, mine to worship." He lowered his head and kissed the corner of Weiyun's mouth, lingering, warm and sweet, making Weiyun's knees go weak. Then, as they walked toward the palace gates, General Guzhen stepped out from the shadows, his tall figure appearing like a guardian angel. He didn't speak much, but his eyes said everything. He walked over, took Weiyun's hand in his large, rough, warm one, and held it tight, interlacing their fingers. When they reached a quiet spot under the moonlight, Guzhen stopped and turned to him. He looked nervous, almost shy, this great warrior who wasn't afraid of thousands of enemies, trembling in front of the man he loved. "Weiyun." Guzhen's voice was deep and rough with emotion. "I don't have words like they do. I don't know how to speak sweetly, but my life is yours. Every sword I swing, every battle I fight, every breath I take, it is all to protect you. If anything ever happens to you, I don't know what I would do." He knelt down on one knee right there in the grass, looking up at Weiyun with pure, devout love in his eyes. I don't care about power or status. I only care that you are safe, that you are happy. I love you, more than my own life. I will stand by your side forever, as your shield, as your servant, as whatever you want me to be. Weiyun was moved to tears. He bent down, touching Gu Zhen's face gently. Zhen, stand up. You are my hero, not my servant. Gu Zhen stood up and pulled Weiyun into a tight, warm embrace, burying his face in the crook of his neck, breathing in his scent deeply. Then let me be your everything. That night, walking home surrounded by the three men who loved him so differently yet so fiercely, Weiyun realized his heart was completely full. He loved each of them. Xiao Yan's devoted adoration, Xiao Linyuan's passionate possessiveness, Gu Zhen's steady devotion. He couldn't choose and he didn't want to, and miraculously they accepted him and loved him all the more for it. Chapter 15. Dangerous Conspiracy, Love and Protection. The shadows hadn't completely vanished yet. The remaining enemies, desperate and bitter, plotted one last, deadly strike. They knew they couldn't beat the Shen family in court or debate, so they went for the one thing everyone knew was the family's greatest weakness, and the empire's most precious treasure. Shen Weiyun. One afternoon, Weiyun went out of the city to collect rare herbs and ingredients, accompanied only by a few guards. It was a quiet, peaceful trip, until suddenly, masked men rushed out from the woods, overpowered the guards, and dragged Weiyun away quickly. When the news reached the capital, the reaction was terrifying. For the first time, Emperor Xiao Yan lost his usual calm. He slammed his fist onto the throne, his face cold and terrifying, his voice shaking with pure rage. Find him. Search every inch of this land. If he is hurt even a hair, I will slaughter every person involved, destroy every family connected to this. No mercy. Grand Duke Xiao Linyuan drew his sword in the middle of the street, his eyes bloodshot, his aura dark and deadly. He didn't wait for orders. He took his own elite soldiers and rode out immediately, like a storm, destroying everything in his path that stood between him and Weiyun. Touch him, and you will wish you were never born. General Gu Zhen was already gone before the message even finished. He rode his fastest horse, armor forgotten, sword in hand, his heart pounding with fear he had never known in all his years of war. If I lose him, nothing matters anymore. In the abandoned temple where Weiyun was held, he sat calm and composed, even tied up. He knew they would come. He knew they loved him enough to move mountains for him. And they did. It was sunset when the doors burst open. The three men stood there, breathless, disheveled, eyes wild with panic and relief. They rushed forward together, falling to their knees to untie him, hands shaking so badly they could barely work the knots. Gu Zhen was the first to reach him. He pulled Weiyun into his arms so tight it almost hurt, burying his face in Weiyun's chest, his whole body trembling. You're safe, gods, Weiyun. I thought I'd die if anything happened to you. He kissed Weiyun's hands, his wrists, his arms, over and over again, desperate to reassure himself. Xiao Yan was next. He took Weiyun's face in his hands, checking every inch for injuries, his eyes red, tears spilling over. Tears no one had ever seen from the unshakable emperor. My treasure, my love, forgive me. I promised you safety and I failed. I will never let you out of my sight again. Never. He kissed him deeply, fiercely, all his fear and love pouring into that kiss, claiming him completely. Xiao Linyuan didn't say a word at first. He wrapped Weiyun in his own cloak, picked him up effortlessly in his arms, and held him against his chest like he was the most fragile, precious thing in the world. Only when they were riding back, away from danger, did he speak, his voice raw and broken. I love you so much it hurts. Linyuan whispered into Weiyun's ear, holding him tighter. I thought I understood love. But until today, until I thought I lost you, I didn't know. You are my life, Weiyun. My everything. Back at the Prime Minister's residence, they refused to leave his side. That night, the four of them stayed in Weiyun's room, the three men surrounding him on the bed, refusing to let go even for a moment. Weiyun lay in the middle, warm and safe, one hand held by Xiao Yan, one hand held by Gu Zhan, and his head resting on Lin Yuan's chest. They kissed him gently, softly, whispering promises, sweet words, and endless declarations of love until he fell asleep. "We belong to you," Xiao Yan murmured, stroking Weiyun's hair as he slept. "All three of us. Yours, completely and forever. And you belong to us?" Lin Yuan added softly, kissing his forehead. "Our little treasure. Our whole world." Gu Zhan held Weiyun's feet in his warm hands, guarding him silently. "Nothing will ever take him away again. We will burn the whole world down before we let anyone hurt him." In the quiet of the night, surrounded by the love and protection of the three strongest men in the empire, Weiyun smiled in his sleep. He had come here for food and peace, but he had found something far greater, a love that was fierce, devoted, endless, and entirely his. Chapter 19. Forever in Sweetness. Time flowed softly, like warm honey, sweet and slow. Months turned into seasons, seasons turned into years, but nothing changed between them. If anything, their love grew deeper, softer, and more boundless with every passing day. The Shen family stood at the peak of honor and stability, respected by the whole empire. No one dared plot against them anymore. Everyone knew that to touch a single hair on Shen Weiyun's head was to bring down the wrath of the three most powerful men in the land. And Weiyun himself lived exactly as he had once wished, easy, comfortable, surrounded by the best food, the finest things, and the purest love possible. Every day began the same way. Waking up buried in warmth, limbs tangled together, soft kisses greeting him before he even opened his eyes. This morning, sunlight spilled golden across the bed. Weiyun stretched slowly, feeling strong arms wrapped tighter around his waist from behind. Xiao Yan, his chin resting on Weiyun's shoulder, his lips brushing gently against the sensitive skin of his neck, leaving soft, familiar marks. "Awake already, my love?" Xiao Yan murmured, his voice deep and husky with affection. He turned Weiyun in his arms, kissing his eyelids, his nose, then lingering sweetly on his lips, slow, deep, tasting him like he was the sweetest thing in the world. "Sleep a little longer. I like holding you like this." From Weiyun's other side, Xiao Linyuan shifted closer, sliding his warm hand under the covers to rest possessively over Weiyun's bare hip, his thumb stroking soft circles against smooth skin. He leaned in and bit gently at Weiyun's lower lip, then soothed it with a soft, lingering kiss. "He's been awake for a while," Lin Yuan whispered, his eyes dark and glowing with love. He traced the faint marks scattered across Weiyun's chest and shoulders. Marks they had left the night before, proof of how thoroughly and sweetly they loved him. "Feeling sore, little one? Good. Means we loved you, right?" He kissed each mark reverently, his warm breath making Weiyun shiver and melt against him. "Every inch of you belongs to us. Every mark, every sound, every breath ours." Gu Zhan sat at the edge of the bed, already dressed but leaning close, his large hands rubbing warm, scented oil gently into Weiyun's legs and back. Soothing, careful, loving. He kissed the sole of Weiyun's foot, then his ankle, then up his calf, slow and tender, his eyes never leaving Weiyun's flushed face. "I'll take care of everything," Gu Zhan said softly, his voice rough with devotion. "Rub every inch until you feel soft and good again. Then we'll feed you. Everything you want. All day. Just like always." And they did. Breakfast was a feast of Weiyun's favorite dishes, prepared exactly how he liked. But eating was never just eating. Xiao Yan sat beside him, feeding him bite by bite, wiping the corner of his mouth with his thumb, then bringing that thumb to his own lips to taste the sweetness there. Lin Yuan sat on his other side, his arm draped lazily over Weiyun's waist, his hand wandering freely under the table, stroking his thigh or holding his hand, stealing kisses between every mouthful. Gu Zhan stood behind him, pouring warm tea, massaging his shoulders, bending down to kiss the top of his head every few minutes. "You spoil me too much," Weiyun laughed softly, leaning back against Gu Zhan's chest, taking a sweet pastry from Xiao Yan's fingers. Too much. Lin Yuan raised an eyebrow, leaning in to kiss him deeply, swallowing his laugh. There is no such thing as too much when it comes to you. We could give you the whole world, and it still wouldn't be enough. Days were filled with quiet happiness. Sometimes they stayed in the residence, experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen. Weiyun mixing ingredients, the three men hovering around him, stealing kisses, tasting from his spoon, pressing against him until he was breathless and giggling. Sometimes they rode out into the mountains or the countryside, just the four of them, far away from rules and duties. They would spread furs on the grass, eat and drink, and spend hours just lying together, kissing, touching, whispering sweet words, bodies pressed close, completely lost in each other. Nights were always soft, warm, and full of endless love. They would undress each other slowly, worshipping every inch of skin, kissing every curve, every sensitive spot, remembering every way to make him sigh and melt. They loved him together, surrounding him, holding him between them, hands roaming freely, mouths everywhere, claiming him again and again, sealing their love in sweet, deep union that left him trembling and completely theirs. In the quiet after, lying tangled together in the soft bed, Weiyun would rest his head on Xiao Yan's chest, one hand held tight in Lin Yuan's, his legs tangled with Gu Zhen's. He felt safe, warm, and more loved than he had ever imagined possible. I came here wanting only food and peace, Weiyun whispered softly, his eyes heavy with happiness. Xiao Yan kissed his forehead, stroking his hair gently. And you have it, the best food, the safest peace, and us, forever yours. Lin Yuan kissed his knuckles, his voice soft and thick with love. We are your food, your peace, your everything. As long as we breathe, you will never want for anything. Gu Zhen held him tighter, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. We belong to you, every part, every day, forever. Chapter 20, Ending the Best Life. The grandest banquet of all was held on the anniversary of Weiyun's arrival in this world. It was held in the gardens of the Prime Minister's residence, but it was no ordinary feast. Every guest knew not to bring formalities or heavy words. This day belonged only to Shen Weiyun, the young master who had saved his family, helped the empire, and captured the hearts of the three most powerful men in the land. Weiyun sat at the center, wearing soft robes of pale gold, his hair tied with a simple jade pin, his face glowing with happiness and love. Beside him sat Xiao Yan, no longer wearing his imperial crown, just a man deeply in love, his hand resting constantly on Weiyun's waist. On his other side sat Xiao Linyuan, leaning close, feeding him candied fruits and wine, his eyes never leaving his face. Gu Zhen stood behind his chair, one hand resting on his shoulder, the other holding his cup, ready to serve or protect at any moment. The food was magnificent. All the recipes Weiyun had created over the years, all the flavors he loved best. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of flowers. But Weiyun barely paid attention to anything else. His whole world was the three men surrounding him, their warmth, their touches, their soft words whispered only for him. When the banquet ended and the guests had left, the four of them walked slowly through the quiet garden, hand in hand, toward the small private pavilion overlooking the lake. The moon was high, shining silver over the water, the air soft and sweet with jasmine. They sat together on the cushions, Weiyun in the middle, pulled immediately into their arms. Xiao Yan held him from behind, his arms wrapped tight around his chest, kissing his neck and shoulder softly. Lin Yuan sat in front of him, holding his hands, kissing each finger, then leaning in to kiss his lips deep and slow. Gu Zhen sat beside him, his arm around his waist, stroking his hair, kissing his forehead gently. Weiyun leaned back, completely relaxed, completely happy, looking up at the three men who had given him everything. Do you remember? Weiyun asked softly, smiling. When I first came here, I made a vow. I said I would only live an easy life, eat good food, and never get involved in trouble or politics. Xiao Yan laughed softly, the vibration rumbling against Weiyun's back. He kissed the tip of Weiyun's nose. You did exactly that. You lived easily, you ate well, and you accidentally captured 3 hearts and changed the whole empire along the way. Lin Yuan brushed a strand of hair away from Weiyun's face, his eyes glowing with endless love. You got everything you wanted, and so much more. You got a family safe and strong. You got respect and happiness. And you got us. 3 fools who would burn the world down just to see you smile. Gu Zhen nodded, his voice steady and tender. You saved us too. Before you, our lives were only duty, power, war, empty and cold. You came, and you filled everything with warmth, sweetness, and love. You are our savior, our treasure, our whole life. Weiyun's eyes filled with happy tears. He looked at them, the emperor who loved him with devotion, the Grand Duke who loved him with passion, the general who loved him with endless loyalty. They were different, but their love was the same. Deep, pure, and entirely his. He reached up, pulling their faces down to his, kissing each one softly, slowly, pouring all his love into every touch. I have everything, Weiyun whispered, his voice soft and clear in the quiet night. Good food, good family, good love. This is the best life anyone could ever have asked for. Xiao Yan kissed him deeply, holding him as if he were the most precious thing in the universe. And this life will last forever. We will grow old together. We will eat together, laugh together, love together. Every day, every night, until our last breath. Lin Yuan kissed him again, sweet and possessive. You are ours. We are yours. Nothing will ever change that. Gu Zhen kissed his hand, holding it against his heart. Forever yours. Under the bright moon, surrounded by the soft scent of flowers and the warm embrace of the 3 men who loved him more than life itself, Weiyun smiled. He had traveled through time and worlds and found exactly where he belonged. No more loneliness, no more fear, only sweetness, only safety, only endless love. And as they carried him back inside, ready to spend another night loving him completely, Weiyun knew. His story was perfect. His life was perfect. And it would stay that way forever. Epilogue. A lifetime of sweetness. Decades had passed, but the warmth in the small lakeside pavilion never faded. Silver threads now wove through Weiyun's hair, and his face held soft lines from years of endless smiles. He sat nestled among cushions, wrapped in a thick fur shawl, exactly as he liked. Beside him, Xiao Yan, no longer wearing the heavy crown, his face lined with gentle age, leaned close, peeling a ripe fruit with steady hands, just as he had done every single day for over 50 years. Still as sweet as the first time I fed you, Xiao Yan murmured, pressing the piece to Weiyun's lips, then stealing a soft, familiar kiss right after. My love, my life. Across from them, Xiao Lin Yuan poured warm wine, his eyes still burning with that same deep adoration, unchanged by time. He reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind Weiyun's ear, his touch tender and possessive. Even with white hair, you are still the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Still entirely ours. Gu Zhen, now with a stoop from years of standing guard and fighting battles, sat on the low stool by Weiyun's feet, holding his hand tightly in his rough, warm palms. He brought Weiyun's fingers to his lips, kissing them slowly. Every day spent loving you was the best day of my life. No regrets, only happiness. Weiyun leaned back, surrounded by them just like always, safe, loved, full. He looked out over the lake, remembering the day he woke up in this world, wanting nothing but good food and peace. He turned back to them, eyes shining with soft tears and endless love. I got everything I wanted, Weiyun whispered, his voice soft and sweet. The best food, the quietest peace, and the greatest love anyone could ever dream of. Xiao Yan pulled him into a gentle embrace. Lin Yuan pressed close to his side. Gu Zhen rested his head against Weiyun's knee. Forever isn't enough, they said together, just like they had promised so long ago. But we will love you through every moment of it. The sun set, painting the sky in warm gold and pink. Inside the pavilion, laughter and soft kisses lingered in the air, soft, sweet, and eternal. They had all they ever needed, each other. And that was enough. And please like the video and subscribe to my channel isekai'd BL.